with.
Do we still do that?
Are we doing this?
Do we do that on live streams?
Oh, now we're live. We're live here at Pod Save America. I'm Jon Favreau.
They know who I am.
And we have with us Paul Ryan's daughter.
Yes, his real daughter, Erin Ryan.
Commenting on her dad's sudden retirement from Congress. Paul Ryan will not be seeking re-election in 2018. He will step down as Speaker of the House after the election, also probably because they will lose.
He didn't want to be a weekend dad when he was in the minority. He wanted to be
a Taco Tuesdays dad.
You wanted to be a Taco Tuesday dad. Only when you're Speaker, it's no biggie.
I've been playing this all morning.
Welcome to the dawn of a new, unified Republican government.
So much for that. We have a statement from noted Ryan hater Dan Pfeiffer. Dan sent in the statement he couldn't be here today. Paul Ryan may leave Congress, but the stain of his cowardice and complicity will remain. Also, congrats to Brendan Buck on his new role as a crooked media contributor. Subtle statement from Dan.
Water's warm, Brendan.
Wow.
Do we have initial thoughts on this? A Paul Ryan family member. Let's talk.
Paul, he's literally my father, as we've been over before. One thing, and I was kind of doing some research before this because I was feeling very gloaty, like almost overcome with the desire to just be like, yeah. I learned in researching for this that Paul Ryan used to be a salesman for Oscar Mayer and once got to drive the Wienermobile, which is my very favorite Paul Ryan fact, besides the fact that he is taking time off from screwing everybody else's family to spend time with his own family.
A surprising fact? I don't even know.
I think every
it
car...
seems like it fits.
Yeah, I think every car Paul Ryan is in is a
Wienermobile.
Wienermobile.
De
It
facto.
becomes the Wienermobile.
Tommy, what do you think?
It just it reinforced everything about Paul Ryan that I hate. Like the guy, all along, you look at him in his eyes and you see how pained he is about Donald Trump defending racism in Charlottesville and being a bigoted anti-Muslim president. And during the campaign, Paul Ryan would say things like, when Donald Trump describes a judge as being incapable of ruling on him fairly because he's a Mexican, that's a quote, Paul Ryan said that's a textbook example of racism. But when Donald Trump got power, Paul Ryan lost the ability to point out obvious facts. Now we know that all along he's been a massive coward in the face of this like rising fascist president we have with no stakes. He knew he was going to retire. It didn't matter if he remained a speaker. It didn't matter if he was reelected. He could have stood up and had some guts and done these things all along, but he just didn't want to. He wanted his fucking tax cut.
Honestly,
and that's that's what we know about his character.
It's made me think that maybe we were wrong all this time and that Paul Ryan is not a coward and that Paul Ryan, as Marco Rubio would say, knew exactly what he was doing all along, that what was really important to him was passing a tax cut for rich people, and that was way more important to him than standing up to racism when Donald Trump was racist, than helping the Dreamers like he said he wanted to do in his heart. All these things he could have done, knowing that he probably was going to retire and that it didn't matter if he had to keep his job.
Yeah.
Could have put the DREAM Act on the floor, it would have passed with a majority. Could have protected Bob Mueller from firing, didn't do that. Could have not let Devin Nunes run a counter investigation against the FBI and the Department of Justice, but he let that happen. And for a while you're like, well, maybe he let that happen because he was afraid, because he wanted to keep the House majority, because he wanted to keep his job. But really, he's just kind of a shitty guy.
And he also could have allowed bills that would have forced Donald Trump to release his tax returns.
Could have done that.
And they didn't because of him. He is like the worst kind of shitty guy because he was shitty, but he was also a little inept because he didn't get all the things done that he wanted to get done. Like if he were actually better at evil, he would have gotten, in addition to getting his like precious tax cuts, he would have been able to dismantle Medicaid, dismantle Medicare, but he didn't do those things because he's not good enough at being the sort of piece of shit that he wishes he was. And that to me gives me a little bit of comfort, but at the same time makes me angry. Like he's such a benign, like good speech giver that at first you're like, why am I angry at this man? But then the more you think about it, the more it's like, oh my God. Here's another thing that I was thinking about today. I think it's honorable for somebody to want to spend more time with their family.
Yeah, of course.
Good for him. But he is also somebody who's advocated for cutting programs that help other people who need help raising their family. So like poor kids are supposed to somehow raise themselves, but his kids need a mom and a dad around to give them the time that they need.
Paul Paul Ryan gets to retire at 48 years old, and everyone else has to retire way past 65 because he wants to dismantle Social Security and Medicare and make them work longer.
Yeah.
He sucks. He's convinced the entire DC pundit and like press infrastructure that he is a wonk, that he's some wonky, thoughtful guy. He's never actually shown an original thought that wasn't slashing taxes and slashing services for individuals. And like, that's not an honorable thing. That's not a wonky thing. It's not a thoughtful or new or especially exciting policy prescription. That's what big interests have wanted all along. And like, I don't understand why we treat this guy like he's sort of above the rest. I guess it's because, you know, the bar is set by like Blake Farenthold, like running around in his pajamas, sexually harassing literally everyone he comes in encounter with. So I get, yes, Paul Ryan is better than that piece of garbage, but enough of this guy. Go away.
It's a great point. Like, emptying the United States Treasury, giving it all to rich people and corporations so that you can cut all the other programs that are helping people is not super wonky. That's a pretty easy thing to figure out. Right. I don't know if you need like a policy degree to push that kind of agenda. Yeah. Pretty simple to figure out, pretty simple to understand. Just wants to cut government, give it to rich people.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's wonky.
Have you ever been in a conversation with somebody where you're like, oh, nobody's ever told you that you're an idiot? I feel like he's been able to live this.
We host a podcast.
Yeah. That's true. No, but I feel like he's gone through his whole career being touted as this wonk, and I think he's as much a wonk as he is a person who's finished a marathon in under 3 hours, which is to say that he hasn't finished a marathon in under 3 hours, and he isn't a wonk. He's not that smart of a guy.
It is interesting, though, to talk about why he was seen as a wonk. In the Obama presidency, when everyone in D.C. was very upset that Barack Obama did not balance the budget, did not have fiscal responsibility, did not reach out to Republicans to do bipartisan shit, they needed some hero on the other side of the aisle. And they couldn't have the people who were yelling, "You lie," or being outwardly racist towards President Obama, right? They needed someone young and good-looking and like, I'm Paul Ryan. I'm just here I got my numbers and my calculator, and I'm just trying to fix the budget, and I'm a real hero. And
I'm a nerd.
He's good with the Washington Press Corps. His staff had great relationships with the Washington Press Corps. And so because of that, they made him this fucking hero. Like, maybe he's not like the other Republicans. Maybe he's thoughtful,
Yeah.
And it just shows how easily the DC press corps is often fooled.
Yeah, and I think it's also the DC press corps, and I'm from New York, so I guess I'm part of the problem. But I think that people really love to construct narratives where they don't necessarily exist. One person will have an idea, and someone else will be like, well, that feels narratively comfortable, instead of it being factually true. And then they'll just run that all the way to the end zone.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you get there and you're like, wait a second, this never was the case. This is
Not
just
the
a
case.
narrative that everybody agreed was true, and it never was.
So Elijah's barking at us to get to some questions.
Let's get to some questions.
Barking?
Yeah, you can hear him. Carmen Yeager asks, in the larger scheme, what does this mean? That rhymed. Who would take over his role as majority / hopefully minority leader? Is that person going to be even worse than Paul Ryan?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Probably be Kevin McCarthy,
Yeah.
or Congressman Scalise, who's very extreme in a whole lot of ways.
Yeah, or it could just be like a Breitbart social media editor that they just find yelling at ethnic people somewhere.
Perhaps just a Russian bot.
Yeah.
Perhaps someone with 20, just
We'll have MAGA
a
2019.
Twitter egg with 20 followers.
Yeah, and with like 15 letters at the end of its username.
Well, funny you should say that, because the front runner to replace him in his district, Kara McKinnon raises this, is a guy named Paul Nehlen, who is so extreme. He used to be one of Breitbart's like right-wing darlings, but the dude is like a literal Nazi. Posts memes all the time showing like Jews in the Oval Office.
He was denounced by Breitbart.
Breitbart had to denounce him.
He's also like a Wisconsin Nazi, which, dude.
What's that like?
Wrong side. You were on the wrong side of the Mason-Dixon line. Like, what are you, Confederate Nazi stuff? Come on, dude. No. Well, I'm from the north part of the state, so not Ryan's district. I'm from the district that is represented by Sean Duffy, who used to be
of Real World fame.
Over-tanned lumberjack of Real World fame, who is like Paul Ryan, but stupider somehow. But one thing that I can assure listeners, viewers, whatever, there are not a ton of Nazis in Wisconsin. That's not a very
good news.
common thing. So he's like, not only is a Breitbart pariah.
What about
he's
like self-funding wealthy Nazis, which he apparently is one too.
Yeah,
this guy's like raising his own money.
He sounds like a Bond villain, TBH.
Scary.
Even Paul Ryan's political operation put out a statement attacking him today. They don't want him to win that seat. But so the filing deadline in Wisconsin, in the Wisconsin 1st District, where Paul Ryan, which Paul Ryan represents, is June. So probably a couple other Republicans there will jump in this race. They weren't going to jump in before because...
Is Reince from that district? I feel like Reince Priebus is from that district.
Oh my God, I don't know if that would be...
Oh, please run, Reince.
Please
run.
Do it.
Run for office.
But they did...
Get in the arena.
The Cook Political Report, Crystal Ball, all the political rankings out there moved the seat now from safe Republican or likely Republican to toss-up or lean Republican. So very good news for Iron Stash Randy Bryce. He's also got an opponent as well in the primary, Kathy Myers. So it's much more likely the Democrats win this seat. Back to the leadership question, though. Yeah, so it's McCarthy versus Scalise, probably. McCarthy probably has the lead there. McCarthy, of course, if you want a real Trump apologist, this is a guy who picks out Trump's favorite starbursts.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was a great anecdote.
Office.
What was the color? Do you remember?
He likes reds and pinks.
I mean, everyone likes
Which is
pinks.
sad
Like
because I like reds and
I
pinks.
know.
And now I feel like this
so
is
that's
bad.
the only thing I agree with Trump on is reds and pinks.
But Kevin McCarthy was also too stupid to be able to hide the fact that the Benghazi investigations were about hurting Hillary in the election. He went out and said, "Look what we did to her with all these investigations." I mean, he was so ham-handed and stupid politically that he actually maybe could help us. So
he does
hope
say the
springs
quiet
eternal.
part loud a lot. He says the quiet part loud a lot, and I think that's fine.
Katie Chu asks, how do you think this changes taking back the House? I don't think it changes taking back the House, really. I think it's another retirement, which is great. And so now we could possibly get Paul Ryan's seat back.
You know what I think it does, though? It takes a big-time fundraiser off the field. And I do think this is sending a message and a signal to all these corporate donors who sprinkle some to the winners but give a little to the people they think will be the losers just to stay in the game, that they need to hedge their bets big time away from Republicans.
I also think that Paul Ryan, for some people in the party who are maybe starting to be pushed toward the edge by Trump, were reassured by his presence as I'm an adult in the room, which was just kind of cosplay of being the adult in the room. He never was really the adult in the room. But he's sort of, if you kind of turn the TV way down and you only almost hear what words he's saying, he looks like he might have some confidence and might be a normal person. And I'd imagine that suburban voters, like suburban white women, for instance, who usually vote Republican, might not be as reassured by a party that doesn't have somebody like Paul Ryan. That's one less reassuring guy that's
True.
something comfortable to them.
Yeah. You got to imagine, too, that other members of the Republican House caucus that were weighing retirement, now that they see Paul Ryan heading for the exits, it might make their decision.
Well, there's a finite number of lobbying jobs on K Street, so you got to get in line. I just want to flag that Travis Hellwig from our team says yellows, oranges are the best. So
hey, Travis, pack up your things.
Yeah.
Pack up your things.
Nice knowing you, pal. John Canans asks, do you think I assume that's Paul Ryan, not Travis, wants to run for president in 2020 or beyond? Yeah, I think once you're on the ticket, he was a vice presidential nominee.
Once you get the taste.
Once you get the taste. Yeah, it's like, anyway, you know what I was going for. Once you get the taste, he probably wants to run again. Best of luck.
Great.
There was zero constituency for Paul Ryan in the leadership role in the House because the party's moved so crazy to the right. Imagine him running in Iowa.
Do you think he will join a cannabis organization, a cannabis company like the last Speaker of the House, John Boehner, did today? In other speaker news?
I love that story. That is a great story.
John Boehner's good now.
John Boehner's daughter is actually married to a man who was born in Jamaica and had a minor pot charge on his record. I think they married in 2013 or something, which I think is totally cool.
Yeah.
No judgment whatsoever. But I just think it's funny that he's sort of Cheneying. As soon as Dick Cheney had a member of his family that was not a straight person, he came around on LGBT issues. Now Boehner has sort of become oh yeah, real human beings are affected by marijuana laws. Yeah. What? That's crazy. So I would love to brainstorm how like, how could Paul Ryan be affected?
Like maybe
with-
he'll get to know someone, or someone in his family will marry someone who's on Medicare or Social Security.
Yeah,
Oh,
or-
that'd be good.
Yeah, maybe one of his children will graduate from high school and want to be in a job that doesn't necessarily have insurance that comes with it. Maybe they want to be an actor, creative, a writer, or something like that.
Maybe
And
he'll
like,
know, so he'll run into someone who makes minimum wage.
Yeah, maybe he'll. He might run into a person in Wisconsin who makes minimum wage. We're all very wealthy there.
Do you think John Boehner, accidentally ate the wrong gummy bear over Christmas one year and was like, "Whoa"?
Well, that would make me want to make
This
pot
is a
illegal.
revelation.
No, edibles would make me be like, no, nobody
That's-
should have these.
Yeah, I've read that as well. What do you got?
Someone said, "Let's talk about Syria, please." I don't know who it is, but I think that's for you, Tommy.
Robin Finistad says, "Let's talk
Okay,
about
there you
Syria,
go.
please." I don't know what is there to say. I think Trump's deliberating right now with the steady hand of John Bolton at the tiller.
Jesus.
I mean, like, let's step back. We'll make this a broad conversation. I mean, the fact that they brought the pool into, I think, the cabinet room to get a video of his deliberation with his national security team about what to do after a horrific chemical weapons attack, and his response was just to pop off about Mueller. So that I think speaks to how distracted he is. He also canceled his trip to a major summit in Latin America. That is like, you just take yourself off the battlefield there. You're missing out on enormous security conversations that are important. Barack Obama, when we started the Libya operation, launched strikes from Brazil.
Oh, we were there.
Literally launching missiles from Brazil. I mean, that's not like to say the whole thing went perfectly, but you need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Let's be honest. He canceled the fucking summit not because of Syria,
He's
so that
pissed
he could
about
stay
Mueller.
home and tweet
And watch
about
Fox News.
Mueller.
Yeah,
like,
and go
make sure-
golfing.
Yeah, and go golfing, but like make sure he could see the news on the right time zone.
Yeah. I mean, like, I just hope the press corps this time doesn't get so,
This is the moment he became president.
captivated by a few missile strikes on an abandoned runway.
What I noticed there was news today that Russian military is moving into the town where there was the purported chemical weapons attack. Why do you think that's happening?
To mop up, keep people out of there, do whatever they can to cover it up, 'cause they're complicit. But you also have Trump tweeting like completely crazy things at Putin about how the very smart bombs and missiles are going to fly and you can't stop them. I mean, we've escalated from talking shit to Kim Jong Un to Putin. It's a dangerous game here.
Also, the thing about missiles kind of directly contradicts what Donald Trump thinks we can do with missile defense. Like, he thinks we can shoot missiles down from the sky, but nobody can shoot our
Nobody else
missiles down
can.
from the sky, which is an insane set of beliefs.
It was also a crazy set of tweets right next to each other. One where he's talking about, watch out, Russia, we're going to shoot your missile, we're going to. And then the next tweet is like, all this bad blood with Russia, it's all the fault of the corrupt Democrats and Bob Mueller. Blamed, imagine that, Russia
Blame America
all
first.
the Paul Ryan news sort of took precedence over this, but Donald Trump is talking about the country that interfered with our elections, that attacked us, and he's saying it's actually the Democrats' fault, FBI's fault, special.
It's not
special
invading
prosecutor.
Ukraine. It's not supporting a guy who's gassing his people. It's Bob Mueller.
I think what I guess the silver lining of this is when we have a president who isn't Donald Trump, every time they go back to a boring norm, we will experience it as a new feeling. Ooh, he didn't tweet a crappy thing at the president of Mexico about his daughter.
What
He did.
restraint?
Yeah, oh my stars. He did attend a thing that every other president before Donald Trump attended and didn't cancel the weekend so he could play golf and anger tweet at Fox News. Like, it'll be nice to rediscover the norms once
really
this
will
era
be.
is done.
Shea Bowles asks, is there any possibility that the bipartisan bill to have the firing of special counsel expeditiously reviewed will get any traction? It appears so. So this is Tom Tillis, Republican Senator, Lindsey Graham, and then Cory Booker, and forgetting the fourth, Democrat. They have a piece of legislation that basically says the president can only fire. So basically, special counsel can only be fired by someone within the Justice Department, not the President of the United States. And then the second big thing is, if the special counsel is fired, he has 10 days to appeal to the judiciary, to court, and then the court can rule whether the firing was right or not. And if the court rules that it was not right, then the special counsel is allowed to do his job. So this legislation is now moving. It's Chuck Grassley, who runs the Judiciary Committee, said that we'll get a vote on the Judiciary Committee. Mitch McConnell, who is now the worst Republican in Washington now that Paul Ryan is stepping down.
Marco Rubio's not going anywhere.
That's true.
Yeah. He's pretty bad.
He has not said whether the bill will get a vote. But here's the thing. I don't know what you guys think. Like, say the bill gets a vote. If this bill gets to Donald Trump's desk, he's just going to veto it. So now we basically need 2/3 majority in the House and the Senate to pass this bill. Prospects?
Cool.
Grim.
Yeah, I don't. I'd love to see all these people put on record. I want to tie them. I'm viewing all of this politically because I don't know that we can save Mueller if Trump decides to fucking rage about this. I'm viewing all these things politically. Let's tie them to Trump as much as we possibly can. Because you're still seeing the Marco Rubios of the world being like, well, he said he's not going to do it. And then Paul Ryan said he's got assurances from people in the White House that Trump won't fire Mueller. The same people that are leaking that they've never seen him more crazy and unhinged and don't know what he's going to do next.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, they're all in the
Great
prediction
assurance.
business now. That's
When
all they can
has
say.
Trump ever kept a promise? He is like, he doesn't pay people. He doesn't stay married to people. He doesn't even not cheat on his wife who just had a baby.
Right.
Like he doesn't keep promises, and so any assurances are worth nothing from him.
I do think there's
Fact.
a question like, what do we do if this happens and Trump fires Mueller? There's a lot of Move On and other organizations. They have petitions, get into the streets, start protesting. I do think that's probably important. I do also think that Democrats who are asked about this should, say, yeah, he should be impeached. Like I think we need to start talking about impeachment in a serious
If he
way.
fires
If
Mueller.
he fires Mueller,
Yeah, of
and
course.
not have this whole debate about should we impeach him or not? Should we talk about impeachment? Like if he fires Mueller, yeah, he should be impeached, and every single elected Democrat should say
That
that. I
minute.
think.
I also think there's like a slow burn problem that he's created for himself. Like starting when he fired Preet Bharara and all the other U.S. attorneys. He has made enemies of people that know much more with much more familiarity than he does how things work and how to play chess. If we're going to use that metaphor, I think like the Justice Department, he can't totally outmaneuver the Justice Department. He can't outmaneuver the FBI. Like it's not like Mueller is the only guy that's out there doing anything, and it's not like there aren't people that have worked for that or for that agency for years that feel more loyal to like the norms of the country than they do to the president.
Right. And also, we know that this latest raid on Michael Cohen's stuff was conducted by conducted by officials in New York.
Yeah.
Which makes us all believe it's a state-based prosecution or effort. So it doesn't seem like the legal jeopardy goes away if Mueller goes away.
Well, right. And what's also really interesting about this, and you tell me if I'm wrong, because I might be just talking on my own ass, but
Again, it's a podcast.
It's a podcast. But here's the thing: if it's a state matter, that's not something the president could pardon.
No,
Am I
no.
correct?
Right.
So if Cohen gets taken to the cleaners through the state of New York, then there's nothing that Donald Trump can.
I love that they were searching records that Michael Cohen owns taxi medallions because of course he does.
I didn't know that.
There's no more awesomely 80s ridiculous shitty thing for a New Yorker to do.
I do think when I was watching the cabinet meeting on Monday night and Trump sort of had that meltdown about Mueller,
Scary.
It was one of the first times in a while that I was genuinely frightened because I thought this could happen. He could fire Mueller, and I do think it's scary because it goes so far beyond Russia, so far beyond Stormy Daniels, corruption, whatever it may be. It is the President of the United States deciding that he is above the law. And that for all the screams of, is he an autocrat? Is he a demagogue? Are we headed towards fascism? All that stuff since Trump was elected. Him deciding that he is above the law, that the law does not apply to him, is a moment of genuine
Right.
fear for the country. I think.
And here's another
Should be.
thing that I've been wondering about. It's like him. Okay, so if he decides he's above the law, Republicans ostensibly stuck with him so that they could get their precious tax breaks passed. Like now, what are they in it for? What are they in it
Just
for?
power, just pure power.
Yeah,
They just want to be in office.
It's like
The title, the
it's-
office.
But they're going to be left just like I don't know.
Well, they haven't dismantled Medicare and Social Security yet.
Right.
They haven't completely.
Or that's true. They
dismantled the
do have
budget.
some more evil to do.
They do, yeah.
But to me, it reminds me of have you ever been out like, I don't know, this was maybe 10 years ago, out at a bar and everybody is just in a terrible state and they're dancing like idiots. And then the lights come on and you look around and you're like,
oh, God.
This is awful.
I'm the last
I
one.
think eventually the lights are going to come on in Washington and the people that are supporting Trump are going to look at themselves and be like, I am dirty dancing with the most repulsive person I've ever seen.
Well,
it's Bill Kristol.
It's funny you say that because Eric Erickson of Red State.
I was just going to read
can't
this.
even believe we're now quoting him.
I
but
have the
please,
quote up.
Please do this.
Eric Erickson decided to interview a member of Congress in a safe way because they figured they wouldn't be spotted. I guarantee you they will figure out who this was.
Which Safeway do you think it was?
I don't know. But he said, he was asked about Trump. He said, it's like Forrest Gump won the presidency, but an evil, really fucking stupid Forrest Gump. He can't help himself. He's just a fucking idiot who thinks he's winning when people are bitching about him. He really does see the world as ratings and attention. I hate Forrest Gump. I listened to your podcast and I heard you hate it too. What an overrated piece of shit movie. Can you believe it beat The Shawshank Redemption? End of quote. Lots to unpack there.
He went on a few.
But the political
a few detours there, that congressman.
He did.
This is a congressman, by the way, who also told Erickson he's on TV all the time defending Donald Trump. He's always on Fox. He supported him in the general.
The political wheels came off the bus, and they're no longer seeing Trump as an asset. They are ready to let rip.
Oh, geez.
So the lights definitely came on.
The lights are on.
For that
Right, exactly. But I think it's going to come on for other
The lights
people
are
as
on.
well.
You've been
Also-
dancing with Blake Farenthold. Things are getting ugly.
He's wearing
He's
pajamas.
talking about his pajama.
Yeah, your hands smell like Red Bull somehow.
Question about Mark Zuckerberg. Can you all talk about how to educate old white congressmen on technology issues?
No.
Is this person saying that
Fire
the
them.
questions weren't the best yesterday in the hearing?
Yeah. Well, this is. I know that Al Franken has a complicated place in American discussion right now, but Al Franken, when he was in Congress, was one of the few people who actually knew how technology worked, and so that's why it was a shame that he resigned. For unrelated issues that could have easily been avoided. I don't know. I know a lot of technology writers, and they are all similarly frustrated that they're like old people who still use dot matrix printers to like print out their map quests on their way to I don't know, a restaurant or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea.
I don't either.
I tweeted this complaint yesterday, so allow me to repeat myself. But there was a whole national conversation about whether or not we should be listening to high school students about gun violence, and then no one has any qualms about listening to an 84-year-old question Mark Zuckerberg about Face Mash, a website he created in 2004. Like, it is unnerving. Like, people really ripped on former Senator Ted Stevens from Alaska when he referred to the internet as a series of tubes, became like a viral meme. But like, it spoke to a broader problem that these folks, we need to term limit them. Like, time has moved past a lot of these members of Congress and senators.
Yeah, if you look at how many sub 40 members of Congress there are versus over 80,
Yeah.
Not good.
it's not great.
Yeah.
And this goes for both parties too, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
I think in order to be sworn in as a congressman, you should have to complete a series of technical tasks.
Yes.
You should have
Or you just be able to pass a driver's test.
Yeah. I think you should be able to pass a driver's test probably, and then also you should be able to figure out how to install and uninstall Spotify and to change your privacy
Ooh, that's a
settings on
good
Facebook.
one.
Right. That should be and if you
What
can't do
else?
it, sorry, your opponent wins. Your opponent has to try the test.
What other ones should they do? Like, set up a Sonos would be probably good.
Oh yeah, hook up a Bluetooth speaker.
That's actually a pain in the ass.
It is, but I figured out how to do it.
It always takes Hannah's phone first. Like, my car hates my phone and likes Hannah's phone. It makes me crazy.
Have used Facebook.
Yeah, right. Oh my
Right.
God. This is, I don't want to blow up her spot, but I got a question from a female relative who is over 50 this week, who doesn't have Facebook, who asked, if I go on Facebook and look at someone's profile, can they tell that I looked? And I was like, you don't even have Facebook. And she was like, yeah, but can they tell? It's like, no.
Only Mark Zuckerberg can tell.
Yeah,
Only Mark.
Nobody can tell.
Any other questions?
Ay.
Oh, Comey.
There's one in the live stream.
What is- Comey. We're doing this because if y'all have a chance, please look at the promo that ABC has put up for the Stephanopoulos Comey interview that is going to air Sunday night at 10 p.m. on ABC. It is.
Fantastic.
It seems like a Saturday Night Live parody, but it is
so
real.
Michael Breen asked, in light of this week's news so far, what are your predictions for next week with Comey's interviews and book dropping?
I predict I'm going to have to read the whole goddamn book and talk about it somewhere. That's what I predict.
It seems from the teaser on ABC that Comey will make quite a bit of news. They said that people in the room one source in the room for the interview said it was shocking. People left the room shocked. He compares Trump to a mob boss.
Oh, wow.
And
he gave Stephanopoulos a piggyback.
Okay, so it's important. I think it's important to note that people left the room shocked during the Stephanopoulos interview, but they didn't leave during the Stormy Daniels interview, wherein she described the president's dick. So whatever happens, it
was more shocking than a
super mundane dick.
Worse than a description of President Trump's genitals.
I am anticipating a lot of really sanctimonious quotes and memes and reflections about duty and principle that make me want to rip my hair out and turn away.
It does feel like we're, as Trump gets close to possibly firing Mueller, we're also finding out more and more about this investigation. I mean, like Rachel Maddow last night had handwritten notes from someone at the Justice Department about Comey's original meeting with Trump, where he said that Trump demanded loyalty. And so basically these notes confirm Comey's testimony. So I feel like the people in charge of this investigation are moving with dispatch here to try to get this thing wrapped up, or we're at least finding out more and more. So
yeah, I mean, Comey he's an interesting figure. I don't feel necessarily warmly about him or terribly about him. I think I'm
more fascinated.
I oscillate pretty dramatically from really thinking he's
Me too.
awful to really thinking he's great. But he kind of reminds me of like guy with a guitar at a party, like coming in, just like you're like, okay, well now we're gonna listen to you singing, but it's actually a pretty good song. But you're still a guy with a guitar at a party, and I wish you would go. I've got a lot of good analogies today, guys.
But he's singing.
I wish Tommy had his guitar.
I just, but he's doing.
Are you a guy with guitar at
No,
party?
I promise I'm not. But but Comey would be doing a remix of like some hip hop song in like a super emo way from the 90s.
He'd
He'd
sing
be like,
Hotline Bling.
remix edition. Yes, that's perfect.
Comey comes in singing Hotline Bling, and you're like, okay, this is a pretty good song.
Fine.
But get out.
We will leave you with James Comey's acoustic version of Hotline
To
Bling
play you out.
here on Pod Save America's live stream. We will have a pod tomorrow on Thursday, and Erin's going to be with Love It or Leave It this weekend, Minneapolis and Chicago.
Yeah, my two hometowns.
Very
and
exciting.
I just interviewed Madeleine Albright,
You just
former
interviewed-
Secretary of State, so that's going to go out tonight.
Lots of content.
Content.
All right, everyone. We'll see you later.